That we are in Mi'kma'ki and the district of Sipekne'katik, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kma'ki people, East Hants. Further acknowledge the 50 African Nova Scotian communities whose 400-year history have contributed to the province's culture, history, legacies. We are all treaty people. Get a motion to approve the minutes of November 21st. Second? All in favor? Motion passed. Next item is new employee introductions. Who's going to take that?
We need to approve the agenda. It's just been missed on the agenda.
Okay, sorry, it's missed on the agenda, but I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Okay, the next item is new employee introductions. I assume the CAO will take that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With us today in the chambers is Jessica Vanderhoff. She is taking over Alana's position for Alana's maternity leave. She joined us just as Alana was walking out the door to have her baby. And she comes with a lot of paralegal experience and is able to fit right in and has hit the ground running since Monday. She's been a force to be reckoned with in the last week. So glad to have her aboard. You'll see Amanda here showing her the ropes for the first meeting, and then she'll be on her own for the next year while Alana's home with her little baby. So we welcome Jessica, and I'm sure you'll see lots of her over the next year.
She's already a Montreal fan.
Uh-oh.
Oh, I didn't know that. It should be part of our screening process, but it's not. The other position change to let everybody know about, Les Parker has been our supervisor of wastewater operations for probably since most of us were teenagers. And he is retiring at the end of this fiscal year. So we've done the transition to have Ben Brown, who was one of our wastewater operators, move into the water and wastewater operators, move into the supervisor of wastewater operations. So he'll be joining Dwayne in managing that team. Ben's been with us for a number of years and I think he left for a minute and then he came back. So we're really excited that he's taken on the supervisory role and that he'll be here for the successful succession of our wastewater and water teams. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, next item is a presentation from Kara McCurdy of DNR.
Good to go.
Just hang on a sec.
All right, I'm not gonna go through the entire presentation because I'd be here for an hour and a half, and I'm sure you don't all want to be here for that. So, I'm no stranger to East Hants. I grew up in Upper Rawdon most of my life, and then I moved to Muscatawbit, and then into Stewiacke, where I'm at now. I'm a volunteer firefighter for over 30 years, and also on the search and rescue team for over 20, and natural resources for over 30. I know I look young, right? But the past 12 years, I've been dedicated to doing the fire prevention program for natural resources. And as you guys know, after this season and the wildfires we had, there's been an increase in interest in wildfire risk assessments. So throughout the province, I travel and I talk to community members, I talk to associations, I talk to council members like yourself, and we kind of go over where the risks are within your community and what you can do to plan and to do mitigation within those different areas. So things that we look at within each of the communities is things like topography, past fire occurrences, fuel typing. What kind of fuels do we have in that area? In your guys' riding, we have Upper Rawdon, Renfrew Road area, Sabaganati over in Shuby. Those are what I would consider like high-risk extreme areas where we could have fire potential. And a lot of where it stems from is what we've had past fires, recreational use, ATV activity, campgrounds, trail systems, and things like that, where it brings more people into the community to enjoy it. So we tend to have a little bit more fire risk in those areas. When we look at fire behavior, you can go to the next slide, it's cool. When we look at how fire spreads, three things that come up the most often, and the one that really sits at the very top of all the wildfires is the ember accumulation in smoke. So when we have large wildfires like the one in Tantallon and Barrington this season, we can have fire embers traveling in smoke anywhere from a couple 100 meters to 5 kilometers ahead of the fire head, which is what we had in Tantallon. We had fire embers traveling in the smoke and hit Highland Park just down the road. When it comes to direct flame contact, it usually has more to do with how close the forest is to that structure. So if the house is really close to the forest, we'll see more like the picture on the left, full structure loss because of how close it is. Whereas the picture in the middle with the melted siding, it was a little bit further away from the forest stand and had a better chance of survival. But on the other, I already know these pictures are from Porters Lake Fire, and I know the fire department was there to actually protect these structures. But in the case of Tantallon and both Barrington, I guess, you get to the point where resources are overwhelmed and there's not enough fire department resources, air attack, DNR, whatever there be, to put out the fire. The day of the Tantallon fire, we had what we class as the perfect storm. We had drought conditions all winter, barely any snow. We had only 130 millimeters of rain up to that point. And then we hit April and May where we had that drought period, extreme temperatures. And the day of the Tantallon fire, we had 13% humidity, which is not heard of much in Nova Scotia because it's usually pretty humid here. And we had the 50-kilometer-hour winds. So that combined with our spring conditions that we usually get that time of year with all the energy going into the leaf production, the forests are extra dry. So it was the perfect storm, and there really isn't much that could have changed the outcome of that. The sad part is we had assessed that community back in 2017 and deemed it an extreme risk then. And they were in the middle of doing the reassessment back in 2022. And then 2 days after the fire happened, we were actually slated to have a public information session with the community, unfortunately, and we couldn't have it because the fire happened. So for any of the communities out there, I ask, never say never. It's bound to happen. Last week, we sat in on our annual wildfire meeting in Liverpool, and Bob Robichaud with Environment Canada did a really, I'm going to say, scary presentation on what the weather is going to be like down the road. We're not going to see a decrease in natural disasters and wildfires. We're going to see an increase in them. And yesterday, I was really impressed to see that the Canadian Firefighter magazine came out with an article on firefighters and the change in volunteer fire departments and the lack of folks that want to be in that kind of thing, but also that FireSmart needs to be brought to the forefront for not just DNR, but the volunteer fire service, for the municipalities, for the residents, because it's not just one group's responsibility, it's multiple groups' responsibility. So when we look at the losses of Porters Lake, or not Porters Lake, why does it say Porters Lake at the top? Oh, it's from the last slide, sorry. Look at the losses, it's hit or miss. It's depending on what was around that structure when that fire happened. Things like evergreen shrubs, bark mulch, and flower beds, that 0 to 1.5 meter directly around that structure is going to be your highest impact. So the homes that we were able to get aerial photographs or look at and determine how the home burned, it was things like that. It was what was the home made up of? our pilot was flying over at the time of the fire, and he said there was a lot of gutters on fire. So those little fire embers I was talking about earlier were landing in those gutters. And these are just pictures of the Tantallon fire that are flashing through right now. But if the gutter is made up of plastic, then it's a better chance for it to catch fire and catch the soffit and the roof and the attic component of the structure. A lot of the aerial photographs we saw was the fire started in the flower bed and the bark mulch and trailed up the siding of the exterior of the structure, which made, home ignitions really easy. In that the 0 to 1.5 meter zone, we're looking at folks having an absolutely non-combustible area around their structure. So that's getting rid of, if you just go back a slide for a second, one more, right there. This home survived in Tantallon, and there were several homes like this that it inherently had done fire smart practices. Gravel around the foundation, gravel flower beds, well manicured grass and mowed. They had anywhere from a 10 meter to a 30 meter clearance from the forest stand to their home. Now the siding on that home wasn't fire resistive because it was vinyl, so it melted and had quite a bit of damage. But if they hadn't done all those little things around the foundation of the structure, then they probably would have lost their home to a wildfire. This picture here, on the left, this home actually sustained very minor damage and had all 4 homes around it, including a daycare burned to the ground. And it had well over 30 meter clearance from the forest to the structure. And they had absolutely zero landscaping around their foundation. Like there was no shrubs, there's no bark mulch, it was just grass right up to the cement foundation. The other big thing is having that clearance from the grass to the siding. So your concrete basement is up a certain distance. So that way if the fire approaches from a surface fire, it's just really gonna fizzle out and not travel up the siding like it would if it was the picture on the right. Where they had shrubs. Now the only thing that saved them in that picture was that those shrubs were hardwoods and had leaves, so they had a higher water content and they weren't as fire ready in a wildfire. Going into the next slide, you can see the zones, and I already talked about the to 1.5 meter, but going out past that, we're looking at residents doing just cleanup, mowing grass, pruning trees, and thinning trees. And you want to promote more of a diverse type of tree, like hardwoods, less softwoods. And the reason why we're pruning and thinning them is so that if there is a fire approaching the home, it reduces the fire behavior significantly. And if you have a surface fire, it's really just going to travel underneath those trees, pass by the trunk, and keep going. It's not going to burn the entire tree. Where we get into extreme fire behavior like we had this season, once a fire gets going and it gets that cumulative fire behavior happening, that's when we see a lot more structure damage. Looking at Highland Park and Tantallon, once it hit the topography, it increased in speed up the hill. And I really didn't expect when I went in there looking at it that there would be much damage because they had a lot of hardwoods. But they had a lot of stuff around their homes, that made that fire catch the things like the flower beds on fire. But the other big thing is with fuel typing, and this slide shows it perfectly, is the closer together the homes are, the more you're going to have that domino effect, and it's going to burn from house to house to house. Whereas the picture on the right-hand side shows kind of an intermix where the homes are spaced out quite a bit, and that was Spryfield back in 2009. This can reduce the amount of homes burnt, but the risk is increased because there's more fuels available for the fire to consume. In cases like Barrington Fire, what we saw the biggest damage down there is that folks had very long, narrow driveways and did not meet what Fire Smart standards consider a standard for a driveway. And fire apparatus, as fire chiefs know, can't get down the driveway to both effectively protect the structure, but they also can't get in the driveway because the forest is on fire around it, and it's not safe for the fire department. So we saw a lot of homes that had long driveways get consumed by fire. these two pictures, these homes were too close to the forest, and they had a lot of landscape practices around them. You can go on to the next. How's my time, guys? Just give me a time check. Okay. So what we get into is the community risk assessments. So folks like myself, I have only one other trained person in West Hants. Her name's Jennifer Daniels. She's a Hantsport firefighter, a volunteer firefighter. We can complete community risk assessments. I've had a lot of requests from municipalities to complete an entire municipality, which is difficult because it's really patchy. So what I like to focus on is your top areas where you think you're going to have the highest fire risk. And I can help you identify that. Like I said earlier, like Renfrew, Rawdon, Sabang over in Shuby. I just know what we've had in the past. And in 1935, we actually had a wildfire burn completely from Mount Uniacke right through to Grand Lake. And it consumed quite a bit of land in between those two areas. So it certainly can happen again. So with the communities, I look at everything: access, egress, water supply, how close the homes are, what are their homes made out of, past fire occurrence, critical infrastructure like towers and power lines, things like that, because we need all that for our fire departments to be dispatched and communicate on a wildfire. I look at landscape practices. I might have missed something now because I'm just naming them off. But anyway, all those things together to give you kind of an idea of where to focus your efforts in your plan, you know, where you want to move forward with the community in doing any kind of remediation in that area. You can go to the next one. So a lot of the communities I've approached, or they've approached me, they basically just have a cleanup day to start. After they talk about their priorities and where they want to focus their efforts. The one on the left is West Hants Chateau Village. Very small community of 70 homes, a lot of it's seasonal. They have a common area where everybody gathers, and they decided to focus on that. And so they did mitigation there, and I don't have the pictures up. I wish I would have put them in, but they have some cool signs to kind of demo, you know, what to do around your home, so that when residents are using the common area, they can go and look at this and say, hey, I should do that around my own home. Whereas Bear River, on the right-hand side, First Nation down in Digby, decided to do everything. They're like, we're not taking any risk. So they put in a fuel break, 10-meter buffer around their entire community boundary, which was 8 kilometers, by the way. And in that, it's just an open area, but they're looking at it differently. They're looking at it as an area where the community members can use it for hunting, gathering, fishing, recreational use, fire emergency access, but it's also a fuel break. To either have a fire come into the community or exit the community. You can apply for the $500 grant. It's good to go to the next one. West Hants Chateau Village actually applied for the Wawanisa insurance grant, which is $15,000, and received it last season, and they used that to do the mitigation around that common area. That grant is available right now. It closes this Friday, and I just pushed it out to all the communities and my representatives here this past week. Again, so most of the work has been through myself, a couple of different reps throughout the regions. That's Jennifer in the slide there. But I have had a lot of inclusion with the emergency measures groups in the different regions, helping with the work, like Bruce Blackwood and Angela Henhofer down in Lunenburg area. They're heavily involved in the program. So once you do the assessment and do the plan of what you want to do, you keep track of your volunteer hours and your resources, and you can apply for community recognition status, which gives you that medal sign you saw on the last slide that the First Nations community was holding. Okay, you can go on to the next. This is a fairly new project for Natural Resources this past, I'm going to say, year and a half. We're into advanced home assessments, so we have roughly 50 people trained throughout the province, mostly Halifax Regional, Cape Breton Regional, and the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq, who are trained to go out and do individual home assessments. We're only one of 2 provinces in Canada doing it right now. The program's free to the homeowner. It doesn't cost you to have the assessment done. I would like to expand it to the rest of Nova Scotia, but the catch-all to this program is it costs $320 per person per app to have that person be able to do the home assessments. The training is free, but they have to pay for that app annually in order to use it. We're hoping that that'll go away or reduce as more users come online with it. So the homeowner gets a full 13-page report out of that assessment, and it gives them ideas of where to focus their efforts around their own home. And in that, they're looking at landscape practices is the biggest one, and how close the forest is to the home. So high water content, low shed plants in your beds, no bark mulch around structures, and just having, you can have bark mulch, but don't have it next to the structure. Next one. Then we look at, this is a harder one to do because Nova Scotia, as you guys know, is 75% privately owned. So getting homeowners that have woodlots on board to doing mitigation has been a tricky one. But I am, since Tantallon, have had a lot of interest with a couple forestry contractors learning more, arborists, landscapers, things like that. But the biggest thing is to look at when you're putting trees in is keeping in mind how close they are to structures and using hardwood instead of softwood. Because your softwoods are your trees that are going to be the most volatile. It's like gasoline, it catches fire really easy. So, next one. Hot topic every day, as of yesterday, is wind damage. Hurricane blowdown, as we saw in Cape Breton and anywhere from actually Truro to Cape Breton this past fall, can be a problem up until about 3 or 4 years post-event. And then the trees start to deteriorate and the needles are falling off the trees. Right now, yes, they are a high fire risk, but less potential for human activity to be in there, recreational use. So there's a less amount of fires happening in the hurricane blowdown areas until they get paths cut through them. So we're just asking residents to increase the swath from their home to the blowdown. So if a fire happens, they have increased chance of survival. Next. Oh yes, hot topic. Everybody saw this in the CBC back in the spring or May. Back when I did the assessment, I didn't have very good mapping, so I just drew circles on the Google Earth program. And I even had Natural Resources Canada call me and say, well, how did you determine that red circle? And that's actually where the fire started in Tantallon. And I said, FireSmart. I used everything in this little booklet that I passed off to you guys. Go on firesmartcanada.ca. A lot more resources there. And I used all these 7 disciplines. That's cross-training, working with agencies, vegetation management, and there's so many more things like education and prevention. And that's how I determined, they had transmission lines, they had recreational use, they were on top of a hill, heavy landscape, heavy wooden construction, everything just aligned to a high-risk area. And next, and how's Todd?
10 minutes?
10 minutes, okay.
So I would leave time for questions. Yeah.
Sure. Let's slide a little bit further into training. Yep, that's fine. And I'll close with this so you guys can ask questions, but fire departments can get training in the advanced home assessments. Like I said, there is that fee. The local FireSmart representative training, both of those can be delivered by Natural Resources. They are free programs. They don't cost anything to the fire service to take them. The training part, I mean. It's just the time to actually administer the community risk assessment and the advanced home assessments. But we encourage folks that want to take that training to be either involved in first response in some capacity. But I did do training with the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq because they didn't have that capacity in some of their communities to have the first responders there. But considering all these things, so look at your roads, your civic signs, work with EMO and do emergency planning. And get into the program, ask more questions about FireSmart Canada, reach out. I'm here at any time to help you guys with anything that you're interested in. So you can just slide through those if you want. I believe you guys have seen all these anyway. Encourage all of the folks here to take the FireSmart 101 training at firesmartcanada.ca. It'll give you a better understanding of how all the fire behavior works with the fuels and the homes. It's free, it takes 45 minutes to take it. So, and I don't get any commission for telling you that. So, any questions?
Well, thank you, Kara, for that report. It's very thorough, and obviously your work is very accurate. The proof was in the pudding in the Tin Talon fire, so we appreciate that. So we'll open it up, see if any councillors have any questions.
Must have did good then.
Okay. Councillor Hibb.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very good presentation. Very liked it. You mentioned a couple times the Rawdon and the Renfrew area as being problems, and definitely so. I know I've been over a lot of natural resources roads, and they do an excellent job of keeping them graded up and ditched and water crossings and stuff, and that's the reason for that. We have in that area there a lot of companies that have roads in there, lumber companies and stuff, and private individuals have roads, and they keep their roads up to date too. The problem that I see is that in order to get them, you gotta go across DOT roads, which most of them are K roads. And DOT will not spend money on K roads. I've already contacted them, and that's a really, really bad issue. You've got, other people picking the roads up, and DOT is not getting there, so you're kind of defeating the cause. And the council has drafted a letter and sent to the Minister and Department of Transportation in regards to this. I think it'd be vitally very important for your department to do the same thing, because it kind of defeats the cause. If you get roads in back which are good for emergency service, but if you can't get to them, defeats the cause. So
I guess that's where the wildfire risk assessments can help you, because in those assessments, we identify anything that's lacking. So we did that with Tantalon, the access egress water supply. Those aren't things I myself can't fix, but what I usually do is I share that with the local groups that are involved in those and get them more involved. Because we face the same thing in fire suppression, just to get in there to get to the fire. The good news is forestry operations only contribute to about 1-2% of the wildfires we have seasonally. So it's usually more to do with the recreational use of the folks coming in after using the trail systems. Yeah.
thank you, Mr. Chair.
Warden Rolls.
Yes, thank you, Kara, for the presentation. And I'll just let folks know how dedicated this gal is. Guess where she spent the evening of her high school graduation? She was not walking across the stage to get her certificate. She was fighting a barn fire in Rodney. Anyway, that's good information to have, and I think we should all review it and do the little exercise you told us about online. It certainly can't hurt. I know since the wildfires this summer, we have been looking through a little bit of a different lens at a lot of things as we approve developments and that, and as we try to, we can't go back and fix everything we'd like to fix, but where there are opportunities to improve things, we're actively looking for those and trying to improve them. You mentioned the fire in 35. That's probably the same one which burned right up to behind Blair Bonds.
I think so.
Yeah. So it doesn't take long for a fire to go from what you think is a fair distance away and consume anything and everything in its path. So anyway, I guess that's about it for me. Just really pleased that you were able to have the time to come and speak to us, and I think through our staff and that, we'll have to have a look and try and identify some. I'm sure we'll be talking.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Eisner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hats off to you for your presentation at NSFM. You did a really big job there. I mean, that was the whole province. So how do you feel about the other counties coming to you, talking about their issues? Because, I mean, there's a lot of counties that are really wooded areas, besides just our Tantallon locally. What about Guysborough and Cape Breton and whatnot?
It's been patchy. I've had a lot of interest in Western, mostly like Lunenburg, Shelburne, Yarmouth area. But when it comes to Central, Halifax, Cumberland just started with me about a week and a half ago, looking at doing more work up there. I was surprised it wasn't earlier. Our minister's riding, right, in his area. So, but not a lot of interest so far in Guysborough and Antigonish. I've had a couple of risk assessments in that area, but I really would like to be more. You know, there's a lot of wooded areas. When I went up to Cape Breton and did the training, I did a couple of public sessions, 3 actually. Well, it was actually more first responders. And I was expecting to get another call to come back and do a public one, but it never did happen. But I know the fire department's been dealing with their own issues right now up there, so I'm hoping that the interest will pick back up. And Shelburne has. They came to me before the fire happened, and then they came to me after. Lunenburg's been very proactive, and I think the EMO group and West Hanson, Jennifer Daniels has been really pushing their group. But yeah, I'd like to see more interest because it's not just one agency that should be involved. So we created a provincial committee of, I say, almost 15 agencies back 7 years ago to get more involvement with community development planning, you know, fire marshals, emergency measures, fire services, Parks Canada, Aboriginal affairs, and groups like that. So hopefully, you know, we can all get together and work harder on this stuff.
You getting any financial support from the feds on this stuff?
There is money coming, but I have not been told yet how it's going to be allocated and how we're going to be able to use it. So
I mean,
I'm
they
just
got 2 big parks, big here,
fingers crossed.
you know. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, for just a moment, how many community assessments have you done since June? It's like since Tantallon happened.
Just since Tantallon happened, I've done 28.
And
Community.
before that, how many would you have done?
I have probably 40. Yeah. This is why I have a rough voice. I haven't stopped. My mom says I'm going to end up in the hospital.
Councillor Garden Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, well, thank you for your presentation. I think at this point, we are all in, you know, the whole province is in a state of heightened awareness about, you know, fire. And I'd like to think that, you know, fire safety and presentations and all that would be really, you know, on the rise for sure. I think it's so beneficial. Just some of the things that you were referring to there, you know, as an ordinary citizen, you know, long driveways with trees on either side, you know. I guess, you know, a first responder like some of the councillors here who are firemen would think of that. Or mulch, you know, those are just things that I wouldn't think of, nor would an average resident. So I really hope that people are taking advantage of training and information going forward, because, you know, the problem is not going to go away, and it's very real to us now. So thank you.
Yeah, community, the biggest thing with any communities that want to do a presentation, plan it well. You know, Shelburne was disappointed when they had theirs this summer and they only had 5 people show up. But the wound was too fresh. You know, people had just lost their homes and they were still displaced, and it was summer vacation. So plan your sessions well if you have anything for public.
Councillor Rhino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well done presentation. I really appreciated it. Just a couple of questions there. First one, you said that volunteer fire departments can take the training and do their own assessments there for individual homes?
Yes,
Is that
absolutely.
correct? Trained through you?
Yep.
Okay, so it's just a matter of contact to set that up,
Yep.
correct?
Yep.
All right, thank you very much. Also, your presentation, you know, you talked about fire smart homes and what you can do. I wonder if this somehow could be directed to contractors and stuff out there, because, you know, they're the ones that are, you know, I know they want to try to get big bang for their buck, but if if they could sell it as, a fire smart home, it might be to their own advantage, plus it would be to the community's advantage as well. So is there an avenue out there that we can get this to the contractors?
Good question. I'd like to have that answer myself. We're trying. We have had a couple come forward. Community Development Planning is working on it with municipal affairs. The fire marshal's office is also looking at building codes, changing building codes. And when you build a house, it has to meet certain requirements for Fire Smart. They're looking at that for 2025 plus, so hopefully. But yeah, if anybody knows of any avenues for contractors, certainly reach out.
I think it'd be well worth the discussion, maybe within this council, but anyway, I just wanted to bring that up. And you and the warden both talked about a 1935 fire in Rawdon. I really hope that wasn't from personal experience. Thank you.
Not quite, Ale.
Hey, Sonny.
Yeah, I collect all the stats and historical stuff, and I like all that stuff, so.
Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to follow up on Councilor Rhino's question, do developers reach out to DNR when planning subdivisions for layout of roads and streets so they can be, I guess, fire smart? And
They do not, no. No, it's usually the municipality that reaches out. So I'll give it an example. We had one in Peggy's Cove. Community members reached out saying they were concerned of a new development going in. So they wanted a risk assessment of the new development. I'm like, well, I can't assess something that's not there yet. I can include your homes and a rough idea of the area of the proposal in the assessment. So when we did it up, I also sent it to Halifax Municipality, their planning division, and the lady that was in charge of that planning development. And hopefully that they'll consider that, because they had considered everything else when they did the assessment or their planning, light footprint to, green spaces to water, whatever, so, yeah.
so if the developers did reach out, you could give them some advice on
Yeah.
layout and,
I did, yeah, but there isn't really anything in place at this point, yeah.
okay,
I wish
thank
there
you.
was.
One sec. Councillor Garden Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just quickly to comment on that, what my fellow councillors were speaking about. We as a municipality have changed. We are looking at second exits. I mean, we are being cognizant of that now due to what has happened. And, where we are in control of our planning and development, that may be something that we can look at as far as, some criteria for fire smartness when it comes to developers and what we expect them to do and what's in, what our stipulations are. So I'd like to see us take that on a little more, and maybe other municipalities will do the same. It's hard to do it from a provincial level, as you say, you send it to them and hope that they will take it under consideration, but I feel like we could have some control over that at this level. So just a comment. Thank you.
Councillor Musa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You are so right when you say about community meeting and you get 5 people and 10 people and stuff. Have you ever thought about doing a presentation, tape it out, and put it throughout Facebook where people are so engaged, and instead of 10 people, you get 600 people commenting at the same time and learning from it? So
Yeah.
I think that would be a great idea, because we have East Hants Want to Know, we have Mount Uniacke webpage, and a lot of people get involved on those websites. So even if you could share this booklet with them, they will learn, because as a homeowner, I never thought those stuff could prevent a fire. So
Yeah.
I think every household should know it, and they will do their homework, trust me, because nobody wants their homes on fire.
I have thought of recording it. I have recorded one. I just never really did share it. I hate listening to my own voice, I guess, on a recording. But my thoughts are, if I'm invited to a session and only 5 people show up, that's fine, because at least I hit 5 people. It's better than nothing. And I know those 5 people are going to take it and run with it, because they're going to learn a lot of information. So I don't put a minimum on my presentations when I do them, but Yeah, it's hard, and I really want to figure out a way to reach out to the younger generation. You know, maybe if I have to create a game on a phone that they get involved in, but we'll get there.
We, we're in an age where like social media is everything now,
Yeah.
so.
Absolutely.
If somebody's working, when you're doing the presentation, they could always go there and look at it and learn from it, and
Yeah.
as long as the message, it doesn't matter the way it comes to the resident, but as long as it comes to them. Thank you.
It is what I'm considering for the new federal budget money coming down, is some videos and some presentations on that. It's just gonna cost some money to do that, so, thank
Thank you.
you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we can look at that too as municipalities, so we can look at some community meetings when we start to figure out what we're gonna do with this and put this out, and we can invite Kara to come again. We can also talk with our communications people about how we push this out a little bit more once we figure out what that plan looks like for us.
As long as the measures get through, it's good. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no more questions, thanks very much, Kara. We
Awesome.
really appreciate you coming in, and
No problem.
hopefully we can do some more work with you in the future.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks
guys.
very much.
Am I free? Court's dismissed.
Yep.
Yes. Smart lady. That's all you know.
You do.
Yeah.
It's all right, Kara, he's a diabetic, don't worry about it.
So the next item is an in-camera issue. So we need a motion to go in camera. All in favor? To discuss a land issue. Okay, we met in camera to discuss a land contract issue. Now we're going to ask, staff has given direction, so now we need an adjournment for a break. Move to adjourn. Second? All in favor? We'll be back at 11 o'clock.
Meeting of Infrastructure and Operations to order. First order of business is the approval of the minutes of October 17th, 2023. Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And it has passed. Our first item on the agenda is,
Minutes for November 21st?
pardon? We just, yeah. First item on the agenda is the exit ramp challenge. Go ahead, Andrea. Well, I say that.
Thank you, everyone. This is one report that I've been really excited to come back and talk to you guys all about. So as you are aware, we did a 3-year pilot program. It was titled the East Hants Exit Ramp Challenge. So this is where the municipality, we adopted all the highway interchanges under the Adopt a Highway program provincially, and we had a grant set up. So community groups, basically we sub out the cleaning up to our community groups, and they would get a $500 grant. So the program was successful in our evaluation. So we did it over 3 years. The total cost was $17,000 over the 3 years. Within the report, so just a couple high level, we had 34 cleanups completed, 26 community groups or businesses were supported, participated in the event. And the total amount of litter cleaned up was 6.5 tons of garbage, or the equivalent of 14,400 pounds of litter. So within the report, it shows you each of your exit ramps, how much they cleaned up, each cleanup they did. And I've also included a list of all our groups that participated during the cleanup. So from our perspective, it was successful. The community groups really appreciated having an option to have a different way to do some fundraising. So for staff, we're recommending that the program continue into next year. We're also recommending that perhaps there be an increase from $500 per cleanup to $750 per cleanup. And that would impact your budget going from a $6,000 a year budget to $9,000 a year budget for the program. And then there's a recommended motion there. But we're open for questions.
Thank you. First up to speak is Madam Warden.
Thank you. Well, and I'm not trying to stop discussion. Discussion can always follow a motion, so I'm going to move the recommended motion.
Moved and seconded. Already on to speak is Councillor Rhino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I brought this to staff quite some time ago around Exit 10. Staff ran with it. They created this. It was a perfect program. I really compliment you on that. And I think it's working. I really do. I think it's just, it's just a great program. But right now, I'm gonna look at it through the lens of budget. And I have to look at through the lens of budget to represent my people. And without knowing what that's gonna be down the road, I cannot commit to an increase in the program, increasing the funding on that program. Do I think it's a great idea for these groups to get more money? Yes, but in the end, there's a cost and it has to come from somewhere, and that's my lens that I have to look at it. So if this whole thing is tied to continuing the pilot program and thus increasing the funding, obviously I'll have to not support the motion, because I don't think that an increase is, at this time, is fair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Just going to let Jesse speak on that.
Through Madam Chair, just for clarification, this is a recommendation to add into the budget for budget discussions. So if changes are needed at that time financially, there will still be an opportunity for council to do that during budget discussions. So that is the scenario being pitched, is to put it in at this level as the primary consideration, subject to change. There's still an opportunity.
Thank you for the clarification. Next up to speak is Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you. Question to the chair. Is any money recouped from any of the collections of like sorting of or recycling, et cetera?
Through you, Chair.
Through your chair, no, there's, everything that's collected is so dirty and wet and things like that. There's no option for, at the ramp setup to,
Make any
everything's a
money.
mess.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having the clarification on that, once, we will then know what that budget's gonna look like, and at that time, we can support, I can support the motion with regard to that. Right now, putting it in the draft. Thank you.
And the motion has passed unanimously.
It's the next one.
A printed.
Yep.
Okay, the next item is recycling processing contract renewal. Andrea, go ahead.
So today I'm bringing forward an update. So our recycling processing contract, we currently send our recyclables to the municipality of Colchester. This contract expires at the end of March 31st, 2024. So the municipality of Colchester is offering all of their current customers an extended contract for 2 years, which would wrap up March 31st, 2026. With extended producer responsibility for our Blue Bag program coming into effect December 1st. They're offering a 2-year program or 2-year contract with an exit out when EPR does launch. It gives everybody a little bit of protection in case there's some delays or things like that. So today's report is looking for approval for the CAO to sign a 2-year contract with Colchester. So the price per ton is currently $155 a ton, and the new price is being set $165 a ton. So it's an increased budget based on our current tonnage is about $11,000 a year. So this would solidify our recycling processing until EPR takes effect. So that's the recommended motion in the document.
Okay, thank you. First up to speak is Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Chair. Through your staff. Looking at the increase of $10 a ton compared to the average household, with as well as with the growth we've had so far in the past calendar year with new houses and new development coming online, would you care to guess between yourself and maybe some support from one of the other departments if this is going to have a large budget impact? It is $11,000, an increase in cost, but the increase in revenue projected from the new houses and everything coming online. Is there a correlation between the two?
Through Madam Chair, I wouldn't do an exact calculation, but I would say it's fair to say that that population is going to help with this. The cost is still more.
It's more, yes.
Is still more. And we will have more tonnage as a result of population growth, but this is a fairly reasonable tonnage increase from a regional benchmarking. Staff had done previous reports and looked at like market options of what else is out there. This is a very reasonable short-term rate increase from Colchester. That's teamwork coming from them, is staff's perspective.
I couldn't agree more. I know the scarcity of being able to even source these contracts right now with EPR and everything up in the air. I don't think $10 a ton is that much of an increase. My question was more to kind of just put it out there and let people know that, you know, with the increase in population, we're seeing the increase of people paying into the system. The system will then not cost as much in the future because the more people pay into it, the less it is, and this should be able to be absorbed quite well. I'll move the recommended motion.
Seconded.
Just to respond to Councilor Perry's question, the initial numbers I have from PVSC that are just coming out is we're going to have about 130 additional housing units in the next fiscal year. So it will be more than that number, somewhere around 25 grand.
Okay, so our motion has been moved and seconded. Seeing no one else to speak. Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion has passed unanimously. Oh, yours has gone black too. Okay, so our final item is the Organics Processing Facility Feasibility Report. Andrea.
Thank you. So in September, council approved for staff to go out to our consultant and have our 2013-2014 report on the management of how we do organics management at the Waste Management Center operation. So that report is complete and it's attached into your documents. The report was triggered because our organics transfer station cover has been damaged beyond repair, and it was removed for safety concerns and considerations. So the financial impact, based on the report, the draft report, is that should the organization decide to build an organics processing facility, including equipment to serve our current and future growth here in East Hants, we're looking at an estimated $6.4 million. So at this time, staff are recommending that executive committee recommend to council to provide staff direction on preparing options for such funding, including applications, potentially seeking out long-term partners, should we want to go forward with organics processing facility at our facility in Georgefield. So that is our report. I will also share in the report, we do talk about highlights. Our growth has certainly triggered changes in what the original report said. We actually have exceeded our organics processing tonnage well ahead of when the original report was done, because again, we have growth here in East Hants. And our current budget for processing and transportation of our organics currently ranges around $230,000 a year. Open for questions.
Thank you. First to speak is Councillor Green.
I'll move the recommended motion.
Second.
Okay.
Question.
Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And there we go. And the vote has passed unanimously. Okay, and our final is INO C&D landfill and second generation landfill report by Andrea.
Me again. So in July 2022, I'm sure you remember that I came to committee and shared that there were some changes happening with the management of construction and demolition materials at facilities across Nova Scotia. And those regulations are now in. We're currently in phase 1 and we're working on site plans on how we're going to support our residents and our other clients and customers at the site. As part of the discussion at the time, we were asked by committee to bring back a feasibility on looking at, do we want to get into building a second generation landfill at our site? One that would receive both the construction waste and regular garbage, where we currently ship our garbage to the GFL landfill in West Hants. So at this time, looking at our options, if we were to go out for a third-party assessment of our property, our options, conceptual cost estimates, we're looking at a report that could cost us between $40,000 and $50,000. And that's if we're looking at a second-generation landfill and also managing construction waste with the new regulation requirements. Staff would suggest that that price would certainly come down if we only look specifically on how we're going to move forward managing C&D at our site and continue shipping garbage off-site. So at this time, staff are recommending that council approve a consultant review for the Waste Management Center landfill options. And we have two recommended motions, essentially whether we keep in looking just at the C&D side of the operations or if we look at C&D and second generation landfill options. So those are two sort of optional motions that we've put forward. I will also share that currently we receive about 6,000 tons of garbage that we ship off-site for processing. And we staff did look at other facilities, other municipalities that have currently constructed cells for second-generation landfills. So one just built a cell in 2021, and it cost them $3.7 million, but they received 22,000 tons of garbage annually. And the other one just constructed one this year, and it cost them $6 million, but they received 65,000 tons annually. And that's just for the cell. That doesn't include all the leachate collection and all the other things that come with it, but that's just to give you some perspective. So staff are just looking for direction on if you want us to do a study and if you want us to do C&D or second gen or both. Yeah.
Thank you. First to speak is Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Looking at both recommendations, the second one is to look at the costing of building a site compared to the first one to just do the evaluation.
Yeah, go ahead.
Through Madam Chair. So we're in a situation with our growth is we need to look at expanding cells regardless. Like our C&D cells are projected to need more space. So we're going to have to build some sort of cell at some point. The difference is, are we looking to cost and construct a second generation landfill? Or are we just focused on the continuation of expanding our C&D operations? We have to do work regardless. And so the second option is the more expensive one, which is going to range between 40 and 50. And if that's the case, that will be what will be put in the budget for consideration. And the first option is to, for now, stay with C&D. And we have time. So from a landfill option, we're under contract till 2031 on our current landfill operations on a site that I would suggest has no projected chance of closing. They're in the business. So it's been bought out by a public entity that has bought several other landfill sites across the province. Their intention is to be here to stay. There's also, we're waiting as a province to see how different landfilling technologies play out. There's been a demonstration site in Chester for some time that hasn't come to fruition. And so we don't know where that leaves us in the landfilling business at this time. And we have time. I think that second option, we can always come back and recircle that. Now that we've had the conversations as staff, we're very confident we can circle back and have that conversation again. If things change and we need to have this conversation, we know what to do. So knowing that, if we're looking at a more frugal and consistent path forward, it's the first one. If we're looking for really a more aggressive projection or really changing things up at the Waste Management Center based on things, we have the second motion. But I would suggest we have time. So we have time and we have options, and we can always go back and re-explore this. It's still in play. So just wanted to provide that perspective.
Madam Chair, based on that information from the director, I'd move option one. If it needs to be read, I would do that also. Move that the infrastructure and operations committee recommends the council direct staff to include in the 2024-2025 budget and evaluation of the Waste Management Center C&D landfill for current capacity, future growth, expansion options under the new provincial regulations to be funded from the Waste Management Center operating reserves. I so move.
Moved and seconded. On before the motion, Gordon Ralston.
Thank you. Well, I'm not speaking in support of the motion. Yes, we can put off. We have time. We've put this off many times, and we've had reports on it. And at the very least, we have the money in reserves, and I think it's time to at least have another report on it and gauge the costs. Because to keep putting it off and circling back to it, it's not going to get any cheaper. It's going to get more and more expensive. And we have a site there that we already monitor for leachate and everything since prior to the current regulations coming in. There's more than enough room to establish a site there, which would allow us to control our costs going forward. We get the report, maybe it's too expensive to consider, and maybe now is not the time, but I think it's the time that we get the report on both the C&D and the second generation landfill. Yes, perhaps where we send it will be open forever, and perhaps environmental rules will change or something in a year or two, and perhaps it won't. We don't know. But I very strongly favor option 2, and so for that reason, I will be voting against the current motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Next to speak is Councillor Rhino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I was one of the 2 councillors that had the pleasure of sitting on council when all these new restrictions came in and we couldn't take everything to the Georgefield site as we once did. I do believe, and I'm standing to be corrected, that we were told by the CAO at the time that we just couldn't afford a new second-generation landfill, and I think we tried to push the province to accept a clay as that a clay base is that to take the place of the second generation, and it of course failed. I guess for me, I hear what the warden said. And if this money is to come out of Waste Management Center operating reserves, I'm probably thinking that maybe it's about time maybe we'll get sticker shock when we see it, but I think probably it's about time that, that we refreshed and see what it would be. If option 1, or the first option that Councillor Mitchell read, C&D, would we be expecting if we, made that so they take C&D and all that rest of the stuff, would we be exploring the option of taking materials from outside the municipality?
Through you, Chair. I think the conversation about what we receive at the site is completely up to council's discussion. So staff could certainly come back and talk to you about what's there and potential customers. That's always up to council as to what you want to receive out there. Currently, we have a transboundary bylaw that says that we don't allow anybody to take anything outside of East Hants that's to be disposed. We want to manage that. But we don't currently receive anything from outside.
I understand that, but
Yeah.
the question would staff bring this up as a part of the discussion if we did?
We would certainly bring it up as options for you to consider. It'd be totally up to council if they wanted to do that or not. Yep.
Well, really, I prefer the second motion to come out of operating reserves, and then we'll have the question going forward, yay or nay, and like I said, it could be sticker shock, and then we'll put this debate again. But those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Next to speak is Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to speak in favor of the motion for the simple fact of the matter is right now, there is a lot of changing in technology and changing in approach to the handling of the waste out of the waste management. The director mentioned the facility down in Chester that was a pilot program that's ongoing, that's being done in cooperation with multiple different agencies, and there's other ones that are happening all over the place. Every year at the FCM, you see the different technologies of taking the waste into different things, and I think if we don't need this right now and we go and we do this study, we'll have a picture of what a Gen 2 would cost in 2024. And if we don't need to build it till 2026, technology could overtake any report that needs to be done at that time. I'm all for the waste, for the C&D going forward. I just think where we have a contract going to 2031, I think looking at that report around the 2027 range would be more indicative than at the 2023 as we sit right now. This way here, it gives 4 years before the expiry of the contract that we currently have. At that time, council will have a better idea in the next 3 years what the technology is, what the way forward, what's happening with waste processing in Nova Scotia, because we have EPR and we have a whole bunch of other variables that are currently changing. And I don't think right now any study that's done on that portion would be as accurate as it would be 3 years from now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Musa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. He stole everything I want to say, so I agree 100% because I was at FCM a couple times and they had a presentation about that site in Chester, and it's going to change the whole frame of recycling and waste management because it's all in a blocked facility and turn everything into pallets and stuff. So if that approved, it's going to be a money maker for every municipality. And I thought it's a great program, but I don't know what's stopping it from being approved yet. But my hope is that it will be approved. And I thought it's a great idea. I don't know if Jesse, you have you listened to that presentation or you know how it's done?
Through Madam Chair, so staff have been to the site. We've a few years back. There haven't been any current official changes in status. They're still working through their different material options and how to make the equipment work. I believe currently they're focusing on offshoots of rejected green bag or blue bag material right now to see how that plays out. But we're not privy as staff to know, hey, this is going to be a for sure this year, next year. We're waiting just as much as you are. So if you've seen those presentations, you have the same information we have at this point.
And if our contract is until 2031, so when is the right time to act? Because I know construction from now till 2025 or 2027, the cost is not going to be the same. So we're going to be asked for probably another consultant to do the estimate of how much it's going to cost. And we're not going to build one right now if we're under contract, unless it's easy to break the contract, or I don't know what the cost to break a contract too. So,
well, through Madam Chair, that gets into just the length of time and where staff are leaning to. It's always good to have information. I'm always for having different levels and technical options in play. It's if we go now with that information, we'll have to update the costs. The regulations could change as well on what the requirements could be for a cell at that point. The regulations just in general in solid waste have been very volatile in the last 5 years on just discussions on what's coming up. And that's where staff are looking more with a cautious view, because it is nice to hold on to this existing service contract. It's a really good rate that we've been locked into for some time, and it would be to our financial benefit to plan post 2031 than talk about escalating and making a change earlier. For sure, we would not win financially to change plans before 2031 when it comes to our landfill and waste stream.
So you're more comfortable with option 2? Is that what you're telling me?
No. Through Madam Chair, right now it's not a suggesting that option 2 isn't a good option. That's there. It's just when, and the more pressing issue is C&D up front. It's something that we can build out quicker. It could be just a stranded cost for a while on the option 2. It's still good to have the information. Staff would be fine on either direction. It's from my perspective, I'm leaning more towards the first option. But that's why there's two, and it's just how much planning or how much information or how much money do you want to invest right now to get that up front.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is that all, Counselor? Next to speak is Madam Warden.
Thank you. Well, through you, Chair, let's just back the bus up here a bit, folks. My preference for option 2 does not consider that we're going to go right out and build a second-generation landfill. I still think it's valuable information to have now. And yes, there'll be changes. It doesn't matter when we get the report. There are always going to be cost updates and regulation changes. Doesn't matter if it's this year, next year, or in 4 years. There are always going to be updates that we'll have to make. And I just think it is prudent to touch base every once in a while so that you don't go 10 or 15 years and all of a sudden talk about sticker shock. And I look at it, the C&D part, we're putting out a fire here, folks. We're putting out a fire that the provincial government lit when they changed the regulation around landfilling C&D items and treated lumber and treated wood. So they've put us in the position of putting out a fire. So we have to do something. And I still really feel that if we're going to do a study, it would be prudent to spend the extra money and have some idea what we would be looking at, because we do not know what fire environment is going to light next year or the year after. And I just think to have those current numbers in our pocket rather than numbers that are 10 or 15 years old would be prudent. So I continue to feel that option 2 would get us the best bang for our buck. And I'm not saying that we're going to break our contract and build a second generation landfill tomorrow, but we don't know what. We have no way of looking into the future and seeing what changes are coming when. I don't think any of us looked through the looking glass and saw the C&D changes coming, the treated lumber and that. So anyway, I continue to feel that option 2 is the best option, and I will be not supporting the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Seeing no one wants to speak, question is called. We'll go to the vote. And the vote has passed with a vote of 7-4. With Deputy Warden Green, Warden Ralston, Councillor Rhino, and myself voting nay. This is the end of it, right? Okay. Why don't we have... Okay, seeing nothing left in infrastructure and operations, we will be looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? And we're adjourned.
We're not going to take another break. We just came on.
I can't eat anymore. Yeah, I told you, Norval. Are we really back on track?
I told you could catch up. I told you could catch up.
Didn't know you were that good, did you?
Well, at some points I was just staring off into space.
I told you could catch up.
Okay, get soda here by dinner time.
Just waiting for my guests to come in. He just walked in the door. This is here. This is. I'll plug you in. Okay, I've got to wait 2 minutes. Who was the, oh, she's with him. Yeah. What about Candace? Anybody hear from her? Did you? Are we waiting for Candace? or-
Oh, it's 11:40, and she said she would be here for 11.
Good morning. I'm going to call Planning Advisory Committee to order. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes for October 17, 2023. It's moved in second. All's in favor? What's the November 21 minutes?
Were there minutes from November?
Shirley, were there minutes for the 21st? Approval of November 21st, 2023 minutes? Moved. Moved in second. All in favor? Yeah, that's the reason I asked. First item on the agenda is a presentation from ABO Wind, Melville Lake Project, introduction by the director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we have Sean Fleming and Heidi Kirby from ABO Wind to present their project. Just a bit of background, the province is seeking, they'll go through the details of the program, but they're seeking more wind energy projects, and there have been 2 proposed in East Hants. This is one of them. If they're successful through that provincial process, they would still have to go through a municipal approval process. And in our case, that goes through site plan approval. And there's a fairly detailed process that they would have to go through in terms of preparing an impact study and site plan approval and so on. But anyway, we'll go through the presentation, I guess, and then if there are any questions about our process at the end, we can go through that. And go ahead.
Very good. Well, thank you.
Just before you begin, I want to welcome our public members, Mr. Balcom and Ms. Stevens, who's just arriving, and give you a chance and welcome our guests.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Warden Rolston, members of council, and members of the Planning Advisory Committee for the opportunity to present today. I'm Sean Fleming with ABO Wind, and I'll start into the presentation, and then Heidi Kirby's going to take over for the second half. So to get started, just a quick outline on ABO Wind. So ABO is a German renewable energy company. It's been around for almost 30 years now, one of the pioneers of the energy transition in Germany. It's developed about 5 gigawatts or 5,000 megawatts of renewable energy projects over that history through a combination of wind, solar, battery storage, and green hydrogen. To give you a sense of scale, that's about 5 billion euros of investment over that period. It's about 1,000 employees, a little over that now globally, spread across 16 countries that we're active in. Home market is obviously Germany, and lots of activity in the European market, and in North America here in Canada. So in Canada, we've got 3 offices. Our headquarters are in Calgary. Heidi and I are both working out of the office in Halifax, where about 1/3 of the Canadian staff are, and we also have an office in St. John's, Newfoundland. So in terms of pipeline, it's about 1,400 megawatts, and it's about 30 staff. This is a little old. We've grown a little bit now, so we're up to about 30 staff now here in Canada. So John had mentioned the new green energy programs that the province is putting on. So the most recent one is the Green Choice Program, which is, it was launched actually December 1st this year with a due date in June of 2024. And this program's been developed to help large energy users, think Dalhousie University, the federal government, to procure green energy to meet their environmental goals. And the way the province is doing that is they're hosting an RFP where developers can propose, say, a new wind project or solar project, and that power will go to Nova Scotia Power, and then Nova Scotia Power will assign it to those large energy users like the universities, municipalities, what have you. So ABO is proposing a project into this program. It's the Melvin Lake Wind Project. We've been developing that site for a couple of years now. We originally bidded into the rate-based procurement program that was last year. Unfortunately, weren't successful in that, but still believe there's a very good project there that we want to keep advancing forward and continue on with our engagement with. In terms of size, it's a 115 megawatt wind farm, so equivalent power for about 25,000 homes annually. So there's been some changes since folks would have heard about this project last time, and if any of you had come out to our previous consultation in the summer. So in the fall, the province announced that any projects that used Crown land as part of their development wouldn't be able to participate in the program. And our prior version of this project was a mixed Crown and private layout. So we've been reorganizing that and working with a couple of new landowners as well to move to 100% private layout. So our newest version of the layout is a 20 turbine layout with 11 of them in East Hanson, 9 of them on the southern end of the project in Halifax County. 100% private. In terms of proximity to homes, the closest homes would be over 1,500 meters away from any of the turbines. And should say that this is it's an early layout, so it's based on some of the field work that we'd done for the previous version. But of course, if we were successful in this process, we'd have to move through the full environmental assessment and field study all these positions. So there could be some changes in the layout that are associated with that. But that's the best version that we've currently come up with.
All right, so this project, there's quite a few local benefits that we wanted to share with you that would be coming forth with successful approval of the project. So of course, beyond the clean renewable energy to large energy customers, as Sean mentioned, we'd also be looking at an estimated close to it would be around 25 million in property tax payments to municipalities over the life of the project. So that's through the Wind Turbine Facility Taxation Act. So that's a program that's in place through the province, but that would mean guaranteed payments to the municipality. So that's HRM and East Hants, of course. Of course, local business revenue, a lot of spin-off opportunities that would come with a project of this magnitude, everything from using local subcontractors as part of construction, businesses, accommodations in the region, a lot of associated benefits like that. We'd also be looking at quite a large amount of benefit funds to go to communities. So that's like local community investment sorts of things for community organizations and nonprofits in the local region in areas that are closest to the project itself. In terms of supplier and employment opportunities, a bit more about that. So we'd be looking at between construction and operation and maintenance, we'd be looking at 75 to 125 short and long-term jobs for the project, everything from site clearing, road building, electrical construction, concrete work, a whole range of different types of trades would be involved, along with ongoing maintenance for the life of the project itself. So our construction would begin with tree harvesting and clearing where needed, access road upgrading. So we're using a lot of existing access roads that are in this area, but certain roads would need to be upgraded, to get a crane in and that sort of thing to install the turbines, but we'd be doing as minimal of that as possible to make sure we could get done what we needed to. Storage yard construction, on-site security, and transmission infrastructure as well. So there's a whole range of things like that. And as Sean mentioned, we're really a growing team of ABO Wind direct employees here in Halifax. So that's there's always opportunities with our growing company too, beyond the larger aspect of construction work. So of course, a good successful project needs to be working together with government of all levels, community. This slide just kind of gives a bit of an overview of the many aspects that are involved in putting a project together. So this project has been in planning for several years. There are different iterations of what the layout looks like, and now we're putting this project forward to a new procurement process. But all in all, there's a lot of work that goes into it along the way with different parties. We've been doing environmental studies over the last few years, so everything ranging from avian, so like bird studies to do baseline understanding of migratory routes and the presence of birds and bats in the area. We're quite focused on mainland moose areas to make sure, just to understand any population levels there. We've been doing a lot of field surveys out at the site. That's really helped inform our project layout along the way, including avoiding wetlands, areas of rare lichen, and all that sort of thing. So we're going to continue those studies going forward throughout the winter and then into the spring and fall as we're preparing to submit our environmental assessment. So here's our overall timeline. The Green Choice RFP was released just at the beginning of December. We've been doing a lot of work together with community and stakeholder engagement involving discussions with emergency services, local environmental organization, ATV clubs. We're going to be continuing our environmental studies going forward. And next year we're planning open houses to provide more information to community members and another mail out to residences and businesses in the area. And of course, we'll send that to all of the councillors and other government contacts that we have to keep everyone up to date on how our progress is planning, or how our planning progress is coming along. We're planning to submit the project for the Green Choice program in mid-June, and then September is when we expect to hear the outcome of that. So that will be really the green light to say, will this project go ahead for this Green Choice program or not? Continuing more field studies over the winter with track studies and pellet studies in the spring, continued wetland observations, and then we'd be looking at submitting our environmental assessment either in late 2024 or early 2025 as of now. And construction ultimately would start with an EA in hand, and with the Green Choice program, a successful submission to that. Construction wouldn't begin until probably late 2025, 2026, and we'd ultimately be producing clean energy with the project by 2028. So that's our overall timeline, with a lot of work happening on different levels all along the way. So in terms of our next steps with East Hants, so we're aware of the municipal permitting and bylaw requirements. We've been provided with all the information of that, so we'll continue to review that as we're going forward and make sure that we're in compliance with every aspect of that as it comes to setbacks and notifications and all permitting. So that will be together with East Hants, but of course HRM as well, where we do have some turbines there too. We'll continue to provide updates to East Hants and invite you to our open house once we have a date set for that. And ultimately, further down the road, leading up to our June Green Choice submission, we would be hoping that East Hants may consider a letter of support for us for this project. But we'll be discussing a lot more and providing you with a lot more information on the way as the plan comes together. So I'd like to thank you for your time today. And our website is melvinlakewind.ca. It's a little bit outdated because we have yet to upload our new project layout and provide some more updates on that site, but we'll be continuing to update that along the way. And we encourage you to reach out to us at any time. That's my email address there, but happy to hear any questions at any time or right now, of course. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation, very informative. First person up to speak is Councillor Musa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wish you all of luck. You think now that you're 100% on private land, you'll have more chances to get approved for this time?
I think so. Given the way the scoring system worked last time round, there was advantages to be fully on private, and we saw that in the way the results looked last time as well, where the folks who were successful were fully on private. So I think this rejigging the layout and focusing exclusively on private land will increase our chances of success in the next round.
Okay, and for the public, the open house, are you thinking about doing one in Mount Uniacke too, or just the one in Halifax?
We'd definitely be open to that. If you have we basically, so as you're probably aware, we had two open houses before. One was in Upper Hammonds Plains a few years ago, I think before you even started. So that was for the project in its earlier iteration. We had one in the summer close to Tantallon, but we're absolutely, we want to make sure that we're reaching the folks that we should be. So that's certainly something we
Yeah,
should
so
consider.
more than half your project is in
Yeah.
Mount Uniac, so I
Yeah.
think there should be an open house in Mount Uniac. And we have the Legion and Fire Hall, they will be open to provide you a space for it.
Excellent.
And you said some money is gonna be spent on communities for like recreation and whatever, like community use. So how that will be distributed depend on how much your project in East stands, what percentage, or it's gonna be 50-50, or it's gonna be like 75 Halifax, 25 us? Like how you define how much you're gonna spend on like each community?
Good question. Maybe I'll start off, and then if you don't mind jumping in. So I think there's kind of two revenue streams you can think of here, and we can talk about both of them. So first, on the tax side, it's legislated by the province. It's by capacity, so it's essentially proportional to the number of turbines. So 11 of 20, so 55% of that would go to East Hants, and 45% to HRM, based on the current layout, with 11 turbines there and 9 in Halifax. And I think we're open to feedback on what a community fund could look like and how the communities would like to see that distributed. I can give you an example of how some other projects are set up locally, where they basically give a set amount of money per turbine per year. So in that case, if you set it up in a similar way, you'd have the same sort of setup where 55% of it would be to East Hants and 45% to HRM. I think ABO overall, I think, views that benefits should be proportional to those that are impacted, and if the majority of the impacts are in East Hants, where you've got more of the equipment, it would make sense that more of the benefits went that way as well. Of course, open to discussions, and I think we're hoping to set up a community liaison committee as well that would help talk about these types of issues, like where benefits are distributed, how they're distributed. So we'd really hope to bring some community voices into that conversation as well.
Yeah, and we're very much open to feedback on that sort of thing too, because I think it's only right that things are distributed fairly, and community members who live in each respective area know the area best and its needs. And this community liaison committee that Sean mentioned, that's fully something that we're, in the new year, we're hoping to get up and running. So that can be whether it's members that are from any community in the vicinity of the project, can help to inform our planning, and as part of that, for sure, what local needs are, even in terms of where community investment donations could really help out.
What he said is fair to me, and I hope that's how it happened, because when I saw that no open house in Mount Uniac, I thought we were gonna be on the sidelines, but I like to see us in the heart of that, and we'll fully support you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Next up to speak, Councillor Rhino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just two questions. First one to the presenters. You talked about tax revenue generation, and you talked it over the life of the project. What is the projected life of a project?
So the agreements with the province are for 25 years, so minimum 25 years.
25 years, okay, thank you. Second question is through the staff. They are asking for consider a letter of support for their bid. What have we done in the past with other wind generating companies? And could that be interpreted as giving somebody an advantage over another bid that may want to put in for this too, because I would like to have a level playing field.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So we have provided letters like this in the past, though they always have caveats in them that, they would still have to be subject to municipal site plan approval. And I guess you would look at any request like that, so there, you could end up issuing 2 letters for the 2 projects that are in East Hants. And I don't know that you need to do it today. You could wait until the process is further along and you actually have some public engagement to decide whether or not you're going to issue that letter. But, I don't know that it would advantage one over the other. I think if the other party that's in East Hants wants to come before council, present and ask for a letter, you would consider that too.
Okay. No, that's fine. Thank you for the information.
Thank you, Councillor. Next up to speak, Warden Rolston.
Thank you. Yeah, my question was just simply that. When are you looking for the letter of support? Is it at this stage of the project or a little further on?
It would be a little further along. We fully plan a lot more community engagement and municipal government engagement over the winter, and where our bid for this project is not until June. If that's something that you were willing to provide at that point based on your assessment of whether you do support the project as a municipality, then that would be, our bid deadline is in June. So leading up to that, I feel would be, we'd love for you to consider something like that, but we certainly wouldn't expect that right now. Thanks.
Given the information that we have now around distance from homes and projected revenues and that, it's starting out on a positive note anyway, so thank you.
We appreciate that feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Nobody left to speak, so I'll thank you for the presentation and wish you well over the holidays.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you, same to you.
Appreciate your time today.
Thank
Last item on the agenda for PAC today is the Municipal Housing Strategy Working Group Terms of Reference, and I'll turn it over to the director. Go ahead, John.
There we go. Thanks again, Mr. Chair. Yes, so as I'm sure you remember, last month, Council approved the establishment of a municipal housing working group to aid in the development of a municipal housing strategy. And since that time, staff had prepared a draft terms of reference for the working group. And I think the biggest part of that will probably be discussion today about the actual membership of that committee. So I don't know that I need to go through the entire document. It was posted for council, and actually a lot of it is boilerplate. We start with standard terms of reference that we have for all our committees, and then we just sort of add the relevant information for these groups. So I'll just point out that this group would be a subcommittee and report to Planning Advisory Committee, not directly to council. So that's stated in the mandate. And the purpose of the committee is to participate in the development of East Hants housing strategy, which is intended to identify measures that the municipality can take to increase the provision of housing, particularly affordable housing, and some other detail beyond that. The membership. So originally this was proposed to have 2 councillors, and there was some discussion at your November committee meeting about expanding that so that all regions of the municipality could be represented. So we added a 3rd councillor there. In addition, in discussions with our EBD folks, it was mentioned the strong interest of the chamber and the interest the business community has in terms of attracting people and starting businesses here, the need for housing. So they have a very keen interest. So I've also added a member representing the chamber. In addition, a staff member would be non-voting, of course, but a staff member representing economic and business development to sit on that committee as well. So those are the 2 changes from what you saw in November. And those appointments would run through your election. Obviously, the councillors appointed may change at that point anyway. So if the working group is required to meet beyond that date, then I think council may appoint or reappoint as deemed necessary, depending on where we're at in the project. And again, it's council's nominating committee that'll select the working group members from any submitted applications, and members would be chosen based on their interest, experience, and knowledge regarding housing. The rest of this is pretty standard stuff in terms of monthly meetings. The chair and vice chair would both be councillors. We found in earlier committees that system seems to work quite well because obviously councillors are more aware of process and so on, so they seem to work well as chair and vice chair. And staff, of course, would support the committee with the research and agendas and all that usual stuff. So the recommendation is PAC recommend the council approve the terms of reference for the Municipal Housing Working Group as presented today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, John. First person up to speak and it is Warden Rolston.
Thank you. I lost my kick at the can at this, so I'll just address the membership. And I still have concerns with the suggested membership. 3 councillors, 1 from each region, so to speak, and it may come as a surprise to some folks here, but from the Hants North region, Councillor Rhino and I don't always agree. Councillor Green and I don't always agree. So to pick one councillor to speak for the Hants North region is, you know, it's going to be challenging. Similarly, 2 members representing the development community. Well, where are they going to be from? Are they going to be large developers, small developers? Developers in Mount Uniacke are very different than developers in the corridor. Developers who want to build apartment buildings are very different than developers who want to build townhouses or single unit family dwellings. And I don't think we have a lot of nonprofit housing groups to choose from. Similarly, 1 member from the East Hants Chamber of Commerce, I would assume they would be providing. That would not be a nominating committee choice. That would be an appointment by the chamber. Don't know where that person's going to be from or what part of the municipality their viewpoint is going to bring. I know it was decided not to use Planning Advisory Committee, but to whittle a working group down to a size such as this, I still have concerns. And as the chair of the nominating committee, you are really challenging me, I don't know about the rest of the members, but to pick only 3 councillors and to pick only 2 members from the development community. That's going to be a struggle for me. And I don't know how we're going to do it. I think there should be more members if we're going to do it this way, I think there should be more members from the development community, and I think there should be more councillors. And those are my comments at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Next up to speak, Councillor Garden-Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff. So I wasn't in favor of this either. I felt that it should have been done through PAC. I had concerns, as I do have concerns with how you are going to determine, let's say, for example, developers. How will you come up with 2 developers if there are 10 developers who are interested in doing this? That's going to go through the selection process?
It would. So we will give them through you, Mr. Chair, we'll give them a form to fill out to say, why do you want to sit on this committee? What do you bring to it? And when you have a chance to look at those, if there are 2, 4, 10, you'll, I guess, like any committee like that, you'll have an opportunity to pick the 2 that you think are the most suitable. And if you want to pick a large one and a small one, you would have that flexibility.
When you refer to non-voting, 2 are non-voting positions, which leads me to believe that the rest are voting positions. What type of issues would they be voting on?
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, as we will bring sections of the draft housing strategy to them and basically ask for endorsement, or they can debate changes, really similar to what happens here. And that's a product that would then come to PAC. So whatever comes through that committee.
And 3 counselors. So I assume that's the rural area. How would you define 3 areas in the municipality of East
So it
Hants?
would be Corridor, Uniac, and Rural North.
And within those 3 areas are substantially, varied concerns and areas. So I'm not in favor of 3 counselors. Definitely not in favor of 1 counselor in the rural area because the rural area has different issues depending on where they are. Not in favor of only 1 in the corridor area because the corridor area is vastly different too. So I just don't think 3 counselors is enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Next up to speak, Counselor Rhino.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And on the lighter side of things, I only agree with the warden when she's right, so I just wanted to clarify that. I just wanted to make that, and this, guess what? This is one of these times. When we talked about this working group, it was, when you say working group, it seems kind of small, seems kind of, what is the problem with it? But when I read this report and I see all this stuff in here, that is one amazing amount of work that's gonna have to take place prior to coming to planning advisory. We could have eliminated that and straight at planning advisory. So those are just my thoughts. So anyway, this is that one time she is right, I'll agree with her. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Next up to speak, Counselor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to move the recommended motion, and the reason why I'm moving this is because I believe a small committee that still meets when required, the Accessibility Committee, only had 2 counselors on it. Nobody from the other regions. We're talking about disparity of accessibility and barriers for their residents. Nobody else was coming to the table to try and help those in the rural area, the corridor or Mount Uniac. There was 2 appointed counselors and that was it. So how is that any different than housing, right? Accessibility and barriers affect everybody throughout the whole municipality. And that small group took a provincial mandated, created a plan that came and was debated here at committee and then went to council and was approved. All this does is allow these people to prepare a report with input to come back here. At the end of the day, the people in this chamber, whoever they may be when this report comes finalized, makes the decision. And I think it is, quite frankly, I'm insulted that people would say, this is more important than this.
Mr. Chair, no one is insulting anyone, we're simply stating our points of view with the motion.
I believe housing is a critical issue, and I believe accessibility and other things are just as important. And everybody should be shouldn't be cherry picking what they want to have importance of. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you, Counselor Perry, for your comments. Next up is Counselor Tingley.
I'm going to second that motion for similar reasons to Counselor Perry. I think John explained quite well why staff recommended a smaller group. And also, the smaller group is not going to make the final decisions. It's going to be presented back to the committee or council, and council will make the decisions. But if you look at some of the things we discuss, and yes, there is a lot of things that have to be considered here. It's going to be a lot of work for whoever's on the committee, but it'll get bogged down, and I don't think it will proceed as fast in a bigger group. I think a smaller group could work fine and present it back to PAC, and the decisions could be made from there. That's it.
Thank you, Counselor. Speaking to the motion, Warden Ralston.
Thank you. Speaking against the motion, I see a vast difference between what this committee is being tasked with and with what the accessibility committee was tasked with. Because the options for housing are so varied in different parts of the municipality. I'm not going to repeat the things that I've already said. I am going to move an amendment to the motion that there be 4 members of the development community and 6 councillors.
Have a second for the motion? Seconded by Councillor Garden Cole. What is your wish?
You have 2 people on to speak prior to the motion.
Okay, speaking prior to the motion, amendment. Councillor Garden Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to clarify, I don't think at any point during my comments did I say anything that would make anyone think that housing was not an issue for me in District 1. Housing is a priority for me. My only concern about this is that I don't feel that all of the parts of the municipality would be fairly represented by just 3 councillors. And for that, I am wanting to make sure everybody is represented so that this can be done right for the sake of housing. So I realize that we are in a housing crisis, and I certainly want to do my part in helping to alleviate that. And yeah, nothing that I said should have indicated that housing wasn't my priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Musa, speaking to the motions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I kind of agree with the warden about the nominating committee. It's gonna be hard to pick only 2 members of. If we have like 6 or 7 members of the development community, how are we gonna pick 2? And I don't know how you're gonna get an agreement between 5 members on 2 only. That's gonna be hard. And for a councillor, same thing. I think 6 is too many. Maybe I agree with 5. 5, like 2 representing the rural, 1 Mount Uniacke, and it's not fair for 6 areas in the corridor being represented by only 1 councillor. So 2, 2, and 2, or 2, 2, and 1, or whatever needed. And those are my comments for now.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hebb.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Speaking against the amendment, sit on a lot of committees. The more people you have on a committee, the more controversy you have. Nothing goes smooth. The less people you got there, the information is going to be there. As far as councillors go, when we take our oath, we're here to do what's best for the municipality, not what's best for the corridor or northern region or Mount Uniacke. What's best for the municipality. So we got to keep that in mind too. So no matter where you're from, you got to make your decision on what's best. And having 6 councillors on there, I really can't see that would be any advantage. It would be more of a disadvantage to myself. I will not be supporting the amendment, but I will be supporting the original motion. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Question on the amendment.
Shirley, would you read the amendment changes, please?
The composition would include 4 members of the development community and 6 councillors.
Okay. Everybody understands that? Questions being called. We'll go to the vote. Yes, on the amendment. And the amendment was defeated, 8-5. Do I read the negatives? With Councillor McPhee, myself, Councillor Hebb, Councillor Musa, Councillor Perry, Councillor Eisner, Councillor Tigney, and Counselor Green voting against. Thank you.
Question on the main motion.
Question on the main motion? Oops. Sorry, Madam Warden, go ahead.
I would just like to know how often this committee would be projected to meet.
Sorry, how often they would?
Yes, is this going to be monthly, quarterly?
They will meet monthly. That's the intention. Reporting, it hasn't been determined yet. I guess when there's something substantial to bring back. So I don't think monthly, but quarterly sounds about right to me.
So that the committee will be meeting monthly.
Yes.
So you will be expecting 3 counselors to carry an extra meeting every month. But hope the people who are also supportive of this are happy to do that. But anyway, no, I will not be supporting the motion. I do not think that the committee is representative enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Thank you, John. Question on the motion?
Question.
Question being called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed with a vote of 7-6 with Councillor Musa, Rhino, Public Member 2, which is, I think, Candace, Councillor Garden Cole, Councillor Rolston, and Warden Rolston, and Councillor Green voting nay. That concludes Planning Advisory for today. I want to thank the public members for coming. Wish them well of the holidays and see you in the new year. Motion to adjourn? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary-minded?